Yes, I know. Oh my gosh, Nana Braja on the Vyasa song again. Wait a minute, wasn't he just on there a couple days ago? Yes, yes, I was. My bad. Actually, I apologize. I made a mistake on the scheduling, and I need to get better at communication. So I'll give it an attempt right now at class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Gopi Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Natira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Nandana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Kalasanji, Radha Kalasanji, Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Kalasanji, Radha Kalasanji, Shri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Sarasvatim Vyasam Chacho Jayam Mudiraya Nasta Preyasha Abreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamo Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Megyantimarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshuran Mityam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Okay, we are reading today from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, and we are reading, this is old, why is it, oh there we go, chapter 23, I think we're reading like the whole chapter or something like that, right? No, okay, only 19 through 39, okay, and focusing on 28, the topic suggested is, discuss the sati right, how we cheat ourselves from trying to enjoy material life. Oh, that's good. Okay, we can do that. Okay, 4:23:19. Let's start there. Let's start reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. Go ahead, Ajit, please.
The queen, the wife of Prithu Maharaja, whose name was Archi, followed her husband into the forest. Since she was a queen, her body was very delicate. Although she did not deserve to live in the forest, she voluntarily touched her lotus feet to the ground.
Read about 3, please.
Although she was not accustomed to such difficulties, Queen Archie followed her husband in the regulative principles of living in the forest like great sages. She lay down on the ground and ate only fruits, flowers, and leaves, and because she was not fit for these activities, she became frail and thin. Yet, because of the pleasure she derived in serving her husband, she did not feel any difficulties. When Queen Archie saw that her husband, who had been so merciful to her and the earth, no longer showed symptoms of life, she lamented for a little while and then built a fiery pyre on top of a hill and placed the body of her husband on it.
So we get a very good example about how love can push us beyond our limits right here. We have a body, this material body, and it's limited in so many different ways. And the love that we have for someone can drive us to push further than that body is even meant for. And so we see this in the wonderful example of Archie, Prithu Prabhu's wife, or Prithu Maharaj's wife, and that she was so much caring for her husband that she pushed her body further than it should even go. Okay, 22, please.
After this, the queen executed the necessary funerary functions and offered oblations of water. After bathing in the river, she offered obeisances to various demigods situated in the sky in the different planetary systems. She then circumambulated the fire, and while thinking of the lotus feet of her husband, entered its flames. After observing this brave act performed by the chaste wife Archie, the wife of the great king Prithu, many thousands of the wives of the demigods, along with their husbands, offered prayers to the queen, for they were very much satisfied. At that time, the demigods were situated on the top of Mandara hill, and all their wives began to shower flowers on the funeral pyre and began to talk amongst themselves as follows.
Wow. Entered the fire, puts her husband on the pyre, lights it, and then jumps in. It's unbelievable. I mean, we really can't, I can't comprehend it. But again, this is an act of, she loved her husband so much that she couldn't continue to live without him, right? And this is explaining how devotional service is. When we really understand how much Krishna is giving us and how much he loves us, we can also love others like this, right? Often in his Krishna consciousness movement, right, we give a marriage a hard time, right? We kind of poke fun at it, But this is somebody who's a pure devotee who shows that her love for Krishna is so deep that she can literally see in her husband all the qualifications of Krishna. She, as Lord Shiva would look at anybody and he would I'm forgetting the words I'm looking for, but he would see the good quality, he would magnify the good qualities in anyone. And so this is the symptom of a devotee. They magnify the good qualities in anyone because they see Krishna in the heart of everyone. Okay, we're on 24. I'm sorry, 23, 25. Thank you. Please go.
The wives of the demigods said, "All glories to the queen Archie. We can see that this queen of the great King Prithu, the emperor of all kings of the world, has served her husband with mind, speech, and body, exactly as the goddess of fortune serves the supreme personality of Godhead, Yagnesha, or Vishnu." The wives of the demigods continue, "Just see how this chaste lady, Archie, by dint of her inconceivable pious activities, is still following her husband upward as far as we can see. In this material world, every human being has a short span of life, but those who are engaged in devotional service go back home, back to Godhead, for they are actually on the path of liberation. For such persons, there is nothing which is not available."
Any person who engages himself within this material world is performing activities that necessitate great struggle and who, after obtaining a human form of life, which is a chance to attain liberation from miseries, undertakes the difficult tasks of fruitive activities, must be considered to be
Cheated.
to be cheated to be to be cheated and envious of his own self.
Hare Krishna. The great sage Maitreya continued speaking. My dear Vidura, when the wives of the denizens of heaven were thus talking amongst themselves, Queen Archie reached the planet which her husband Maharaja Prithu, the topmost self-realized soul, had attained. Maitreya continued, the greatest of all devotees, Maharaj Prithu, was very powerful and his character was liberal, magnificent, and magnanimous. Thus I have described him to you as far as possible. Any person who describes the great characteristics of King Prithu with faith and determination, whether he reads or hears of them himself or helps others to hear of them, is certain to attain the very planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. In other words, such a person also returns home to the Vaikuntha planets, back to Godhead.
If one hears of the characteristics of Prithu Maharaj and is a Brahmana, he becomes perfectly qualified with Brahminical powers. If he is a Kshatriya, he becomes a king of the world. If he is a Vaishya, he becomes a master of other Vaishyas and many animals. And if he is a Sudra, he becomes the topmost devotee. It does not matter whether one is a man or a woman. Anyone who, with great respect, hears this narration of Maharaj Prithu will become the father of many children if he is without children, and will become the richest of men if he is without money.
Also, one who hears this narration 3 times will become very reputable if he is not recognized in society. He will become a great scholar if he is illiterate. In other words, hearing of the narrations of Prithu Maharaj is so auspicious that it drives away all bad luck. By hearing the narration of Prithu Maharaj, one can become great, increase his duration of life, gain promotion to the heavenly planets, and counteract the contaminations of this age of Kali. In addition, one can promote the causes of religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Therefore, from all sides, it is advisable for a materialistic person who is interested in such things to read and hear the narrations of the life and character of Prithu Maharaj.
What's this called when at the end of the chapter they give these boons for reading it? There's a Malashruti? Falashruti. Every time we get to the Falashruti, I say, dang it, I should have paid more attention to the story. Right? Yeah, right, we got a couple more. But then it says, like, with respect, faith, and determination. And I'm like, But yeah, we got a couple more tries we could get. Okay, 37? 36, thank you.
If a king who is desirous of attaining victory and ruling power chants the narration of Prithu Maharaj 3 times before going forth on his chariot, all subordinate kings will automatically render all kinds of taxes unto him as they rendered them unto Maharaj Prithu simply upon his order. A pure devotee who is executing the different processes of devotional service may be situated in the transcendental position, being completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness, but even he while discharging devotional service, must hear, read, and induce others to hear about the character and life of Prithu Maharaj.
The great sage Maitreya continued, "My dear Vidura, I have, as far as possible, spoken the narrations about Prithu Maharaj, which enrich one's devotional attitude. Whoever takes advantage of these benefits also goes back home, back to Godhead, like Maharaj Prithu."
Whoever with great reverence and adoration regularly reads, chants, and describes the history of Maharaj Prithu's activities will certainly increase unflinching faith, attraction for the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord's lotus feet are the boat by which one can cross the ocean of nuisance.
Ribo. We're supposed to go to 28. How? I'm going to do something different. I can be chastised later if need be. I was thinking, it feels so great when you get through a nice story of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? You read it and you go, oh, what were my realizations through this story? What were my understandings? So I was going to open up the floor and see if maybe anybody has anything that they learned from the story of Maharaj Prithu. So, reminder, right? We had Vena, not Vena, really horrible king, right? Sages decide to kill him. They go, oh, wait, we need a king. They churn the body of Vena. Maharaj Prithu comes, and we hear all these wonderful glories of Maharaj Prithu. He goes to do some austerities, sees Krishna, comes back, takes care of the citizens. Any realizations in this story that we've been spending the last couple months reading, month and a half? I'll give one of mine. Over and over again, I felt like I was reading about how wonderful Maharaj Prithu was. You know, like his glories were just being sung over and over and over. And it was really just so enlivening to me to hear how much Krishna appreciates the devotee, his pure devotee, that he gives him everything. Krishna loves him so much, loves the pure devotee so much that he's just like showers everything for him. And so, in my life, how does that practical? Well, I'm not, so desirous of material things, overly desirous. Okay, sometimes I am. But it really gives me a confidence that Krishna will take care of us, right? That Krishna, we don't have to be Maharaj Prithu, but if we do our devotional service, then Krishna, he gives us all good characteristics, all good qualities, and we should use these qualities for Krishna's service. We give them back to him, right? You talk about sometimes we go to the river Yamuna, right? And we take a handful of the water and then we offer it back to Mother Yamuna, right? So Krishna similarly is giving us all kinds of opportunities to serve him in good qualities, and we offer them back to Krishna. So maybe this isn't going to work, but anybody else have any thoughts on Tari? About their realizations in the King Maharaj Prithu's story?
I just want to appreciate the example of such a king who seemingly has a lot of possessions. Because in this world, coming into spirituality and having the resistance towards materiality, it becomes like a bias. This is something that I personally experienced, just really renouncing from all things material. not even wanting to be touched by it because I felt that it was contaminating me to a certain extent.
Mm.
So to have this example is purifying from that consciousness that materiality is bad. And the science of it presented in this story of Maharaj Prithu, of how he didn't have the consciousness that he was possessing anything. Although he was a king, like somebody on the street who may not be understanding the science of Krishna may say, oh, the king has everything. But this king who possessed the world even, or was maintaining the world seemingly, knew that it belonged to Krishna. And it was for that reason that he handled it with such care and grew it to such an extent as he did. And I just feel that's very purifying for me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Antari. Gokulananda Prabhu has his hand up over there. I'm seeing more hands go up too. Yay. I think it's on. I think you just have to tilt it sometimes too, like in the...
So when you spoke about Bahuka, after churning the thighs of King Vena, I was thinking, just like the churning of the ocean of milk, there was poison first. So the lesson is probably the nectar comes after the poison, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right? So that pleasure, which is like a poison in the beginning and ends into nectar, and that is the real pleasure, not otherwise, which is nectar in the beginning and ends into poison. And secondly, the striking feature of Prithu Maharaj that comes out of this episode is forgiveness. Imagine 100 sacrifices going on. Indra is waiting, right? So he backs out. So it's like forgiving, right? So that was the striking feature and all that. And I was also thinking like Hanuman, when he was on the way to Lanka, on the way he confronted Surasa, I think that was the name of the demon. So she kept increasing her size. Hanuman also kept increasing. Right. So finally, Hanuman, when he reached to one particular point where she was so mammoth in size, Hanuman became so small. Right. So that's a big lesson for the devotees, because it may so happen in the association of devotees that we want to compete with each other, and it comes to a point where it is just causing so much stress and so much, it's not a good feeling, right, in the heart. So it is better to reduce the size and back out.
Wonderful point, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Does anybody else need so Hare Krishna, I was going to make a joke. If I don't do 16 rounds by the end of the 3 months that I'm supposed to be at Krishna house, you guys should change my name from Veena to Vena. So just like keep me accountable, guys. So I was thinking about Prithu Maharaj, and he was always grateful to Vena, even though he knew he was evil. He came from Vena, and he accepted Vena as his father. At least that's what I understood. I also noticed that he took lessons from the Sanat Kumaras. Even though he himself knew, he asked for help from the Sanat Kumaras and instruction for the benefit of his people. And sometimes we might have to ask people for help, not for ourselves, but for the benefit of others, and listen to instructions for the benefit of others. And he just was always grateful, even though he could have honestly just been like, okay, everything in the world is mine. Everything is mine. You guys have to listen to me 100%. I don't care about any of y'all. He was always doing what's right. And at the end of his life, he gave back his body, his material body, to the world. And he didn't take anything with him. And obviously that's how we all pass away. But he could have, because he's the Supreme Personality of Krishna, but he didn't take anything with him.
Would you say the end there?
I'm
sorry, I didn't hear you.
Sorry, I messed up. But he's Krishna Dev. He's like an avatar of Krishna, right?
And then you said something at the very end.
He could have taken something from this world. He could have been like, well, I really like this one chair or something like that. But he didn't take anything from them. Or, I really liked how I like my eye color or my something. He could have taken something.
Thank you so much. Kaylee first, and then Ajit. Kaylee.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Thank you. I appreciate all of these realizations. It's really sweet. I was also thinking about how, you know, he was this example we have where he was so focused. He was a king, and he did one of his duties very nicely and thoroughly. And then by the time he retired to the forest, after all of his duties, you could see his level of focus and detachment that carried with him while he was performing all these other duties previously. So I felt that he went through every process, all of his duties very nicely, and he executed with great focus, attention, and detachment, which is what we saw at the end of his life. So that's something that I took away from his example.
Thank you.
I just wanted to elaborate on what Avina was saying. I think it was nice that sometimes we can ask a question to great elevated souls, not necessarily because we don't know, but because it will be beneficial for other people to hear. So I think this is just like something we can keep in mind, especially during Bhagavatam class. If you get towards the end and maybe you don't have a particular thing that you don't know about, but you're thinking, oh, maybe I can stimulate the discussion in this way, or maybe, you know, sometimes I do that. I'll just ask a question. I remember like one class I gave, Sunday feast class, it was all on japa, but I didn't like explain that we're giving beads or whatever. So one like senior devotee was just like, oh, what? I don't have any beads or whatever. Like, you know, it's just things that you can say just to stimulate the discussion in a certain way. That was just my thought.
So we can even though we might know what to do, or we know the answer, or we're, you know, like as in Maharaj Prito, he's Shaktavesha avatar. He's showing this example. And so we can also be an example by asking questions and sparking conversation, Krishna Katha. Right? Like sometimes we're at breakfast, right? And talk gets a little bit mundane. We can do this also, right? Hey, what about Krishna? Let's talk about, you know, at dinner table. Very good point. This is amazing, right? Like how many different perspectives we have from this just one story. Like when I was listening to you guys talk about your realizations, I was thinking some of the other parts of the story, like, you know, Maharaj Prithu comes at the very beginning, towards the beginning, and he pulls his bow to Mother Bhumi, right, and threatens her, right, that you're holding out on us, give, and she says, wait a minute. She says, you know, I'm a victim here, a rightful victim. Sometimes we have victims that you know, people like to play the victim, but she was like really being used in such a bad way. And so, but he said, okay, that's fine, but start giving. And then he starts. But we remember they were churning different things. And we were like, whoa, this is interesting. Okay, we have about 15 more minutes, so. And let's go to the verse 28, and let's see what Srila Prabhupada says. Of course, although this is all, you know, everything that we're discussing here is the things that we've heard because of the mercy of Srila Prabhupada giving us the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? You can just imagine that without Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we would have no clue about Maharaj Prithu. Okay? Sa vichito bhatyatma doruk. Savanchito bat atma duruk. Kachrena mathatabuvi. Kachrena mahatabuvi. Ladva pavaragvam manusyam. Visasyu visajatete. Savinchito batatma duruk. Kritrena mata bhuvi. Labadvad pavaragyam manusyam. Visyasyu visyajatete. Bolo, please. Savachinto Batam Druk. Krishna Mahatad Bhuvi. Labhav Pavarakam Masuyam. Viseshu Visyashate. Savanchito Batamadruk. Krishna Mahat Bhuvi. Abhamanusyam. Visayeshu Vijatate. Okay, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Any person who engages himself within this material world in performing activities that are necessitate great struggle, and who, after obtaining a human form of life, which is a chance to attain liberation from miseries, undertakes the difficult task of fruitive activities, must be considered to be cheated and envious of his own self. Purport. In this material world, people are engaged in different activities simply to achieve a little success and sense gratification. The karmis are engaged in performing very difficult activities, unless they open gigantic factories, build huge cities, make scientific discoveries, etc. In other words, they are engaged in performing very costly sacrifices in order to be promoted to the higher planetary systems. Similarly, yogis are engaged in achieving a similar goal by accepting the tedious practice of mystic yoga. Jnanis are engaged in philosophical speculation in order to gain release from the clutches of material nature. In these ways, everyone is engaged in performing very difficult tasks simply for the gratifications of the senses. All of these are considered to be engaged in sense gratificatory activities, or visyaya, because they all demand some facility for material existence. Actually, the result of such activities are temporary, as Krishna himself proclaims in the Bhagavad Gita 7:23, Antvata tu phalam tesam. The fruits of those who worship the demigods are limited and temporary. Thus, the fruits of the activities of the yogis, karmis, and jnanis are ephemeral. Thank you. Moreover, Krishna says, Tat bhaivati alpa madhyasam. They are simply meant for men of small intelligence. The word visaya donates sense gratification. The karmis flatly state they want sense gratification. The yogis also want sense gratification, but they want it to a higher degree. It is their desire to show some miraculous result through the practice of yoga. Thus, they strive very hard to achieve success in becoming smaller than the smallest or greater than the greatest, or in creating a planet like Earth, or, as scientists, by inventing so many wonderful machines. Similarly, the jnanis are also engaged in sense gratification, for they are simply interested in becoming one with the Supreme. Thus, the aim of all these activities is sense gratification to a higher or lower degree. The bhaktas, however, are not interested in sense gratificatory practices. They are simply satisfied to get an opportunity to serve the Lord. Although they are satisfied in any condition, there is nothing they cannot obtain, because they are purely engaged in the service of the Lord. The wives of the demigods condemn the performers of sense gratificatory activities as vanchintya, cheated. Those who engage are actually killing themselves, atmaha, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. One who wants to cross a large ocean, he requires a strong boat. It is said that the human form of life is a good boat by which one can cross the ocean of nescience. In the human form of life, one can obtain the guidance of a good navigator, the spiritual master. One also gets a favorable wind by the mercy of Krishna, and that wind is the instruction of Krishna. The human body is a boat. The instructions of the Lord Krishna are favorable winds, and the spiritual master is the navigator. The spiritual master knows well how to adjust the sails to catch the winds favorable and steer the boat to its destination. If, however, one does not take advantage of this opportunity, one wastes the human form of life. Wasting time and life in this way is the same as committing suicide. The word labdhyava pavagyam is significant in this verse because according to Jiva Goswami, apavagyam, or the path of liberation, does not refer to merging into the impersonal Brahman but to Salokyadi Siddhi, which means attaining the very planet where the Supreme Personality of Godhead resides. There are 5 kinds of liberation, and one is called Sayuja Mukti, or merging into the existence of the Supreme, or the impersonal Brahman effulgence. However, since there is a chance of one's falling down again into the material sky from the Brahman effulgence, Srila Jiva Goswami advises that in this human form of life, one's only aim should be to go back home, back to Godhead. The words sa vinchintya indicate that once a person is obtained the human form of life, he is actually cheated if he does not make preparations to go back home, back to Godhead. The position of all non-devotees who are not interested in going back to Godhead is very much lamentable, for the human form of life is meant for executing devotional service and nothing else. Woo! So I was putting together the end there is very much lamentable, for the human life is meant for executing devotional service. So the position of the non-devotees. So I was thinking about how we were talking about when we hear the end of these stories and we have this great opportunity to get these boons. If we weren't paying attention as devotees, then we missed out on quite a bit, right? And the non-devotees are completely missing out because their goal is sense gratification. However, we're very fortunate that we come to the Srimad Bhagavatam in the morning, and even if sometimes we aren't so attentive, sometimes we aren't so faithful or determined in listening to the stories, we still make progress. Why? Because Radha Kalashanji is right here, and he's looking and saying, you are here. And we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So he's very kind and very liberal, and that he's giving us some spiritual advancement, and our senses are becoming purified, and we can more and more become more attentive in Srimad Bhagavatam. I've actually noticed this in myself, you know. I've been working with Krishna House for 1 year and 4 months now, and before that, I attended morning program fairly regularly, but not so regularly. But over this year and 4 months, regularly attending Srimad Bhagavatam, I can see that it's easier for me to engage my senses in listening. And that's not because of, and that's because Krishna's mercy is there when we read Srimad Bhagavatam. We read it every morning, right? By daily reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, the troublesome things in our heart are almost completely destroyed. So we simply just show up, and Krishna is willing to help us, right? But we also want to show up in a certain way for Krishna, right? We want to show up with faith. We want to show up with determination. We want to show up with attentiveness, you know? So we should check ourselves every once in a while and see, how am I showing up here? How am I showing up for Radha Kalashanji? How am I showing up for Srila Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam? It can help us so that we can, if we're wandering off and committing suicide, wasting time in life in this way is committing suicide. You can go, wait a minute, I don't want to commit suicide. I want to engage attentively. So, we read this last verses in the story of Maharaj Prithu. We heard from the devotees their realizations from this story that we've heard in Srimad Bhagavatam. And then we read Srila Prabhupada's purport in translation. We talked about showing up for Krishna in an amazing way. Krishna is so kind. He's there for us anyways, but we want to also show up for Krishna in the best way. And Krishna is very happy in that way. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Ajit Prabhu.
Just in terms of this purport we just read, I thought something that Prabhupada said was really interesting.
Mm.
At one point, he was comparing the yogis who want mystic powers and the scientists who want to create all kinds of new like technology. And I just think it's interesting. Like, we want to have like so many gadgets that make us do things that are like mystic powers. You know what I mean? Like, we have like AI nowadays. We want to like create life. We want to create like intelligence and things like that. So I just thought it was an interesting parallel that, in a way, we have the same kind of mentality. If we want the latest gadget that makes us do all kinds of crazy things, it's almost like wanting mystic powers.
I'm so powerful, I hit a button and the next day it shows up on my porch. Amazon Key Jai. Right? I'm joking, obviously, in a way, but you're right? These are unbelievable powers because of technology we've made, that literally we push a button and the money goes through the account, and and boom, somebody drops a package off of our door. It's pretty amazing. I heard not recently, but I've heard quite a few times that basically all the yogic powers, the siddhis, we pretty much got them in ways, through our technologies and stuff to a certain degree. So it's not even that impressive, our yogi, yogi siddhis. How small can you get, Antari?
Okay, so the last point of the purport says, well, first, I'm Antari, and I'm a recovering impersonalist. So, actually, voidist, because that's what I looked up to have this conversation. It says that the position of the non-devotee, it says we want to go back to Godhead. But I've heard this mood amongst ISKCON that, or it was even mentioned in the purport, a true devotee doesn't care if he ends back up in the heavenly planets or if he comes back to earth, because as long as he's around devotees or is engaged with the Lord's lotus feet, it doesn't matter. So is that just a mood? And we should have a purpose. And I mentioned I'm a recovering voidist because that kind of left me with no purpose. There is no purpose at the end of voidism. So now that I'm recovering voidist, I'm asking, should I have the aim to go back to Godhead? And is it doesn't matter if I go back as long as I get to love the Lord's lotus feet? Is that just a mood?
Well, thank you for the question. And my name is Nanda Braja, and I'm also a recovering impersonalist. The thing is, the devotional service is so sweet, it tastes so nice, and it fulfills us so much that it's like we get a perspective. It's like, where does it matter? I can do devotional service anywhere. We start getting the vision that how to use things in Krishna's service. And then we get engaged in that way, and our heart becomes happy. We actually start to see some happiness in this world. But we got to be careful in the same time, because that's not this world. We've actually started to, by Krishna's mercy, started to turn this material world into spiritual, right? So the pure devotee, though, they're completely seeing this material world as spiritual. It is no different. So we're warned as neophyte devotees, let's go back home, back to Godhead. Let's not play around here. There's so many examples in Srimad Bhagavatam of nice devotees that are so fixed up that they, get in some kind of trouble or some mistake happens and they, get caught up with Maya. So our attitude is best to go back home, back to Godhead, pray to Krishna, hey, please take me back. If you happen to start getting some perspective of devotional service and appreciating that, that comes up naturally in your heart, that like, oh, Krishna, you're really helping me in devotional service, and you're just focusing on that, that's nice. We just don't want to imitate or artificially start saying, hey, Krishna, wherever you send me is okay. Let's hold off on that for a little while, But this is the point, though. Is that answering your question? That the point is that Eventually, we get to a point where devotional service is so sweet that we're focused only on that. We don't even see the material world anymore. Not that it's not there, not that things aren't happening, but our focus is so, Arjuna is about to shoot his arrow, and he's being asked by Dronacharya. Is that right? Right? They say he's teaching, and he says, okay, everybody shoot the bird, and I want you to shoot the bird in the eye. And I can't remember who first comes up, and he says, okay, what do you see? He says, oh, I see the tree, and I see the bird on the limb. He says, okay. And the next person comes up, he says, what do you see? Well, I see the bird. I see the bird's head, and then I see the eye. And he goes, and Arjuna comes up, and he says, Arjuna, what do you see? He says, I see an eye. I see the bird's eye. That's all he sees. So eventually we get so refined and so focused in our service that all we see is the service. All we see is Krishna's lotus feet, and how can I engage in that? And so automatically this just falls away. Another example in this sense is that how do we let go of something that's undesirable? Well, we have something that is desirable. So all of a sudden we start, oh, this is so nice. Yeah, never mind, right? I can drop that thing easily, right? So devotional service is this thing is so nice that we start looking at it and go, wow, wow, wow. And we become so fixed on the devotional service. What's the difference between this world, that world, this, that, and that? I'm just focused on serving Krishna. Does that answer your question? Kaylee, what do you think?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Antari. This is a really nice question. I like how you asked it. I also kind of wondered about this.
Are you a recovering impersonalist?
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
My name is Kaylee. I'm a recovering impersonalist. So thank you. And I also had this question because, one of the 5 types of liberation is desiring to attain the same abode as the Lord. And so when I hear that we are not even striving for liberation, I didn't quite register that. So I can understand. I like your response. I had a thought come in and say that even though we might be engaged, like we might be totally happy with our service and we might see only the spiritual world, but I mean, to see things as they are, people are suffering, we can have the idea that it's all Krishna's arrangement and see things in the spiritual realm in that sense, I feel, but there is a lot of suffering going on here. Like whether we are in the spiritual realm in our mind or not, there are other suffering. So I think that was something I thought. I don't know if you can talk about that because, the devotee, they probably want to help everyone that's suffering, but I don't know, it can almost be like a dangerous thing to not even have this desire to, I don't know, I guess I'm trying to understand because we want to go to the spiritual realm where there is no suffering, but we're here, there are people suffering here, so is that why sometimes devotees want to come here because of that, or I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to ask.
I got a little thrown off by devotees wanting to come here. I was like, whoa.
Well, my thing is the devotees want to be engaged in Krishna's service, and Krishna might send, like Srila Prabhupada.
Well, yeah,
I don't know if
that's what came to my mind is Srila Prabhupada did see the suffering of this world, and his compassion was to help the fallen soul, right?
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada's mood was that is his service. That was a service he was going to help all of us to get out of this material world, right? So, but as Ajit was mentioning earlier, that sometimes the pure devotee is giving a perspective so that we can learn, right? So Srila Prabhupada often did this, right? He often gave us examples, saying sometimes that he was like this, or he was attracted by these things, but Srila Prabhupada was never of this material world. He always understood his mission, right? So similarly, our compassion, our service to the Lord can also be to help others, but let's make sure that we're there first, right? So I don't personally, I don't see a difference in the sense of is that we can see the compassion that others need as our service. That can be the eye of the bird. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess I was also curious about this desiring this type of liberation to go back to the Lord's abode, like this, Vaikuntha planets, but I guess I also don't understand in that sense, like, why do we say that the goal of our life is to go back to Godhead, but it's also one of the forms of liberation, yet we also kind of deny liberation a lot of time, like, that we don't want this.
The wording matters because wording gives our perspective, right? If I say, I want to be liberated and go back home, back to Godhead, that's one thing. If I say, I just want to be engaged in devotional service, and therefore I am willing to do that here or in the spiritual world, it's a perspective difference, right? Wanting the liberation is more of our position, right? Devotional service is a position where I'm taking into account Krishna, right? So these are the difference. The liberation, when we're focusing on liberation, we're focusing on us getting out of a situation, this and that. When we think of devotional service, automatically the perspective is on Krishna. So we're not so interested in liberation because we're not focused on us. We're focused on service to Krishna. So therefore, as devotees, we say, all I'm interested is in what Krishna wants. If he takes me here, if he takes me there, whatever he wants. Anybody else have any comments on that question?
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah. Gokulananda Prabhu has a comment.
I was just saying they're two sides of the same coin, like to become a pure devotee and to go back to Godhead. Like here there's a quote by Balvanmankar Thakur. He says, "My dear Lord, if I have unflinching devotion to you, you become manifest before me personally. And the results of fruitive activity and empiric philosophical speculation, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, become like personal attendants and remain standing before me as if awaiting my order." So it's just like a symptom. It's just a reaction. You serve Krishna with love and devotion, and naturally you get liberation. It's just the two sides of the same coin.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So, I would like to share a thought as regards to your question. Our scriptures, they are never black and white, right? So they give, because there are people situated at different levels of consciousness, so they will address their issues accordingly. So there is topmost goal also spoken about, and there are different. Like for example, today's verse, Prabhuji wonderfully explained about Falashruti, right? So Falashruti, if you see, that is not the topmost religious thing. If you look at the second verse of Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto, it says, Dharma projita kaitotra paramo nirmat saranam sadam. So Srimad Bhagavatam, as per the second verse, is meant only for those who are very elevated souls, who are totally non-envious, right? So if we just go by that statement, then we are not supposed to be here. But then that will negate the very verse that, in the prayers that we chant every day, Nashta Prayasha Bhadresha Nityam Bhagat. All the misgivings in the heart, they are eradicated by giving oral reception to Srimad Bhagavatam. Sounds contradictory, right? But they exist. So there is no contradiction, because it's a fact that all of us, we are situated at different levels of consciousness, and the scriptures, they will address those issues. The way you approach to the scriptures, to that extent, to that degree, the knowledge will be revealed. The topmost goal is there, yes, to go back to Krishna and love, attaining the love for Krishna. That is topmost. But that doesn't mean the other people are debarred. Right? That's how.
Thank you, Gokulananda Prabhu. Okay, thank you all very much for this opportunity to speak Srimad Bhagavatam. Appreciate you guys' patience as we went through this spontaneous class, and it was really nice hearing from so many of you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Pramanande Hari Hari Bo, Vanchikau Patarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, Patitanam Bhavanibhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Antikoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. the temple room and it's like, oh, there's Srimad Bhagavatam. Where do I start?